Welcome everybody to today's webinar and education webinar on solar. Very excited for these two gentlemen that are going to be sharing with us some information. Okay, so the first gentleman that I'm going to introduce, he's drawing from his experience of decades of real estate as a builder, broker, and appraiser. He's also the author of Forever Home Design. Larry McCulley now specializes as a design build consultant and advocates for solar power solutions, emphasizing them as enduring investments to creating a sustainable forever home. So very excited to have you on, Larry. We're
Thank
going to
you.
also put on the gentleman that Larry's going to be introducing. His name is Erwin Delabra. This gentleman has, if I'm not mistaken, and he could correct me if I'm wrong, 6 or 7 years of experience in the solar industry. He's one of the top mentors in the number one fastest growing solar companies in the nation, one of the top sales pros in that company, lots of years of experience, very giving heart, and one of the most knowledgeable people in the solar space. So you guys are going to enjoy a great training and a great Q&A session with these two incredible gentlemen. So with that said, gentlemen, I pass it on to you.
Thanks, JC and Erwin. So this is a question and answer workshop. So that's the format. We surveyed our groups and found some of the common questions that are out there about solar power and new construction. And so we've included these in the slide deck. But as we go along, you can add your questions in the chat. And then at the end of the slide deck, we'll have a session for open questions. And the whole purpose of this is to answer all your questions about solar power for new home construction. So the first question, how much solar power do I need for my new home, Erwin?
Thanks, Larry, for the introduction, and JC for kicking things off. So how much solar power do I need for my new home? And it really depends on specifically new construction, the square footage of that new construction. For example, here in California, we have what's called a Title 24 compliance. So any new build in California is going to require for you to add a very small system size to meet that requirement. Typically, it's from 1.8 all the way up to about 2.2 kW kilowatt system size, depending on how big that new construction is. And that also goes for new construction residential homes or townhomes. You might see new construction homes, new townhomes being built, new communities in the area that have solar already built into it. And the way they figure that is they have to meet Title 24 compliance, which is adding a solar system. Oftentimes, they allow you to pick a size, small, medium, large, or extra large, depending on your needs, depending on if you're going to put an electric car, if you're going to have a big family. So you get to pick and choose. But typically for new construction builds, you're looking at anywhere from 5 to 10 panels for your new home. And when you're adding this much, specifically when you're adding this much solar panels to that construction, you want to make sure that you're tying into an expert, a C46 contractor or a consultant that understands how to navigate the space within the construction project to work alongside the GC and integrate this system as a plug-in turnkey solution. So how much solar power do I need for my new home? About 5 to 10 panels.
So when I'm thinking about financing this new construction, can I include the cost of solar in my construction loan?
Yeah, it's a good question, Larry. So oftentimes with the cost of the solar installation, it varies, right? Depending on the system size. Most of these are going to be paid out in cash. However, if there is financing like equity lines of credit or there's personal loans, any kind of creative financing that investors or homeowners are using to build their new construction and they want solar, it's simply an add-on. So they can absolutely bundle that cost of the solar system into their existing loan.
This, I'm sure, could get very detailed, but what generally the equipment that I need for new construction, how would that be kind of described?
Yeah, absolutely. So the type of equipment that is selected it's going to be tier 1 panels, the newest equipment on the market. For example, the ones that you see on this picture are more of the polycrystalline panels, a little bit older equipment. Some of the newer equipment is going to be black on black, sleek, very similar looking to like your phone screen. It's black on black. They are higher wattage as well. So you're looking at Hanwha Q cells, you're looking at REC, Solaria, Panasonic, as far as the solar panels. Now, there's also the inverter. There's two different types. Whether you want a standard traditional string type of inverter with optimizers with solar edge, or if you want more of a independent system that works per panel, which is a micro inverter. And that's going to be with Enphase. There's two different manufacturers, two different, both accomplish the same. It just depends on which one you prefer. As far as being a string inverter with optimizers, or if you want more of an independent microinverter system setup, then that would be Enphase. And then you just bundle that in with a type of solar panel that you want, based on brand, based on manufacturer.
I guess one question would be, does all the equipment have to be one brand, or can you mix brands?
Yeah, great question, Larry. So as a follow-up to that, it's going to be mix and match. So for example, Q cells doesn't produce their own inverter. So you're looking at getting a Q cell panel with an Enphase microinverter setup to help build a solar system on your roof or tie in. You can also do Panasonic with Enphase, and once again, you could do Q cell panels with Solar Edge. So they're interchangeable between each other.
So, this is new construction. Can we forecast how long this solar power system will last?
Yeah, great question, Larry. So this is a question that I get often from a lot of homeowners, a lot of clients that are adding solar systems to their homes, whether it's new construction or whether it's existing homes, or even the builders, the general contractors will ask, are these panels going to last 25 plus years? Are they going to eventually die out? And so these panels are warranted to produce power for 25 years. So that's a long time. And after 25 years, that doesn't mean that year 26, 27, they're going to be obsolete. That just means that they're still going to produce power. They're just not in warranty anymore. So they could still produce power for the next, 15, 20, 25 years, even and beyond. It is going to drop in production every year. They call that degradation. So it drops like a 0.5% every year. So at the end of the year, at the end of 25 years, you're getting about 92% energy efficiency from these panels if you're getting like a Q cell or a REC panel. So if we do the math, that's 50, 60 years that these panels are still going to operate with about maybe 50% of its output.
Yeah, that's a lot longer than I thought, for sure. So a lot of people want electric on their roof because they got electric in their garage. Can they charge their electric vehicle with the solar system?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a popular add-on right now with anyone that's considering getting an electric car that's here with us. Clients or new home builders will often ask as an add-on if they want to add an EV charger or if they want an outlet. There's two different things. There's a 200 amp outlet or 220 volt outlet that you can plug in a car charger, or there's also an actual car charger system with this connector right here that you see. And so when you're adding an electric car to your home, often you're going to have to charge that car to 100%, and it varies. When you have a solar system, if you plug it in during a certain time, it is going to be charged with the solar system on your roof. Now, in the evening, you're looking at possibly adding like a battery to discharge energy back into that car to charge that car versus using the grid. So the question, can I charge my electric vehicle with solar system? Absolutely. It just depends on what time and how many loads you have. If your house is using a lot of power, it might start trickling in power from the grid. But if it's the only thing that's being used, then more than likely that solar system is going to be charging that car.
So it's got a long life, and it probably needs some kind of maintenance. What's typical for the life of the system as far as maintenance goes, Erwin?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the maintenance, most of these systems are designed to be maintenance free. There really isn't anything a builder or a homeowner or client investor has to do to maintain that system. It's meant to be outdoors. Typically, a lot of questions that I have is, do I have to clean the panels because there's dust and maybe like bird droppings, etc., or outside elements from trees, tree sap that might fall on top of the panel. At that point, I'd say maybe once, twice a year, if you have somebody come out that can professionally wash them or clean them for you just for safety with a harness, then that might be the most ideal just to maintain the power output. But typically, we like to say a joke here that when it rains, you get a free solar panel cleaning day when it rains, basically, because it'll just wash everything off. But if you definitely want to clean them, you can outsource that to somebody that can come out and wash them for you. But beyond that, if you never touch them at all, then there really isn't any kind of maintenance cost. And if there are any type of discrepancies that happen with your system, you'll see that in your monitoring app. If there's a panel that's not producing well, an inverter that's failing, that's a call for a service call, which is a different subject altogether. But as far as maintaining it, there really isn't anything that somebody has to do to maintain the system.
What is the process and cost for solar panel installation with new home construction?
Yeah, so within the new construction process, you're looking at basically a base cost for installing it because most of these are going to be a smaller system specifically for ADUs. They could add maybe like a multiple truck roll charge because there's different ways we plug into new construction. It's not like traditional systems that you install on your home. Specifically new construction, the way we plug in is during the framing part. During framing, you already have your main panel already connected. It might not have service yet, not activated yet, but all the rough-in electrical is already complete. And so we'll tie in during that process, run our Romex, and do like what's called an attic run. So we'll instead of running on your roof, we'll do an attic run and run all the conduit through your attic and install the Romex, everything that's needed onto the main panel. So the reason why I say multiple truck roll, which adds to the cost, is because most of these, it's multiple site visits. So the initial site visit is in framing. Once the stucco is complete and the main panel is active, everything is done. Then we have to come back and finalize the solar breaker, plus the installation on the roof. So there's about 2 to 3 truck roll visits on top of your final inspection that also calls for viewing all these things. So you're looking at a 3 to 4 truck roll visit or site visit, which adds to the cost. Typically the installation is maybe about a few months, depending on how fast the construction process is. But as far as the cost for the solar installation, you're looking at about from like 9,500 to about 15,000 for a small system on a new construction build. Some rather, just to give an idea.
Okay, so there's a lot of variables. How can I make the most efficient use of my solar power system?
Absolutely. So just to clarify, how can I make the most efficient use? So most of these systems itself, as long as you design them with the highest wattage you can on your roof. And what I mean is when you're looking at a solar system for your house, for your new construction process, there's going to be many variables, whether you're going with a a low wattage panel or a higher wattage panel. If you can offer a higher wattage panel, we can install less panels but get more power. That'd be the most ideal. For example, if you had to pick between a 300-watt panel versus a 405-watt panel, it'll take more panels to meet that same output, and you might not have sufficient enough roof space to fit all those panels. So my recommendation is to design it with maybe a higher wattage panel with an end-phase system to maximize your output on the roof space that's existing. So that's my best recommendation for making the most efficient use of your roof for your solar system.
So some of the owner builders are going to be building in a rural area that is wooded. Are there any rules of thumb to try to get a high efficiency angle on your roof, or avoid the shading, or anything that you would recommend to somebody that's building in the woods? Or is it even possible to have a solar system in the woods?
Yeah, it is possible, as long as they have power to going to that home existing. Like when you're doing a new construction, you have to also take into account utilities, which is water, sewer, electric. As long as all those services are connected, then we can plug in, because a lot of these systems are hybrid, meaning that they plug into the grid. It's what's called net metering agreement. Your system is producing power for your home, and any excess is going back to the grid and being shared. And so as far as it being installed on the roof, if there's any trees that are blocking the roof, that definitely will affect the production of the system. You want to make sure that you cut down, or at least cut off some of the branches that are affecting or causing shade on the roof. And beyond that would be the actual placement of the panels on your roof. I'd say the south, west, east are the most ideal. South, west, east, and for the most part, just those three. Try to avoid the north-facing roof plane if at all possible. You're not going to get as much efficiency on that. You'll still get some, but it's not as efficient as the south, east, or west. So try to maximize those other roof planes first, before you dive into the north-facing plane, and understand that a panel in the north versus a panel in the south is going to be a big difference in drop in as far as system production.
Got it. So what are some of the environmental benefits of a solar power system?
Absolutely. So a lot of the benefits from solar power is, it's clean energy. It's renewable energy that's produced by, from the sun. So a lot of the benefits come from, it being clean energy, like I mentioned. And beyond that is also your carbon offsetting. So lessening the use of the grid with the solar system type of batteries, it makes you as close to being off grid, and I'll say that leniently, conservatively, because this system is still tied into the grid. However, what we're doing is we're lessening our use on the grid by using our solar system, basing it off the power that we produce on our roof, and trying to lessen that strain on the grid. And the more we do that, coupled with batteries, the more we're going to be able to lessen our use of the grid. And obviously the grid is, burning coals, etc. So they're not always the best forms of energy production that we use. And so the environmental benefits is that we're lowering our carbon offset instead of using the grid energy in the long term.
Excellent. There's cost and value. So does a solar system affect the home's resale value?
Yes, Larry. So whenever you're getting a system installed on your roof, it's just like if you were to upgrade your windows, install a new roof, etc. It's always going to increase your resale value. Now, as long as it's appraised correctly, you should be able to get a pretty good return on your investment. I know there's misinformation out there where they don't appraise it well. So it really does depend on who you get it appraised from, or how they value the resale of that system on your roof. Now, when you're doing any construction, that's going to obviously add on to your property taxes, etc. So you want to make sure that you're looking into all the factors. How big is that new construction? With what kind of windows are you installing? What kind of roof, HVAC unit, installation, etc. But as far as just a solar system, that should add on to the property value of that new build.
Yeah, as when I was a residential appraiser, one of the techniques that an appraiser can use is the change in rent in a gross rent multiplier. So if you can save $100 a month on your energy costs, then you can capitalize that using the gross rent multiplier. And that multiplier might run from 100 to 150. It'll be higher on new construction, but the maintenance of the home is a factor. When you can maintain it more cheaply, the value will go up because the expenses go down. And there's other ways like paired sales analysis, but a lot of residential appraisers only get a few $100s for the appraisal, so they don't really go into that kind of market study. But it's very valuable whenever you're trying to assess, is it going to add value? And I saw one article, I think it was in Zillow, where they said that a typical system will add 4% to the value of a home. And one other little tidbit is that in Florida, for people going solar, the assessor is prohibited from adding the cost to the assessment. So that's another value in Florida. I don't know if any other states are like that, but Florida's like that. So that's my appraisal tangency. Okay, what government incentives or tax breaks are available for solar installation?
Yeah, absolutely. So here basically there's a federal tax credit for anyone that installs a solar system on the roof, which is 30%, and that was extended all the way to 2032, 30%. So based on the total cost of the system, if the system costs $10,000, for example, you get a tax credit equal to 30% of that total cost, which is about $3,000 as a tax credit. So that is available as well. Certain cities, municipalities offer what's called an SGIP for batteries. Others offer rebates as well. The rebates, those are not guaranteed. It's a first come, first served basis based on the city, based on the jurisdiction. Some of them have already run out of funds. It's always worth looking into if you can get some kind of cash rebate back. However, right now, what's guaranteed is your 30% tax credit. Anything else would be an additional on top of that. That's not always guaranteed.
Awesome. So how does the solar power system work in conjunction with or independent of the local power grid?
Yeah, absolutely. So the actual solar system is designed to work in conjunction with the grid to help lessen the strain during peak hours in the day. And it does this by supplying all the energy the home needs during the day. So all the excess energy that you produce that is not consumed in the home is sent back to the grid in what's called the net metering agreement. So while solar, as I mentioned, is a hybrid solution, adding batteries can accomplish greater savings for the home long term. Dependability on the grid, as they either help discharge energy back in the evening, or they can also help with backup capabilities in case of a blackout or a brownout.
It seems complicated, but actually it's an effective system, isn't it?
Absolutely, Larry.
So you've got a great system that's producing a lot more energy than you can use. What do you do? I mean, what's a good economic thing or practical thing that you can do?
Yeah, so It's pretty common that, let's say, for example, most of these new construction builds are going to be either rented or Airbnb, VRBO, etc. Sometimes there might not be somebody living in that new construction for a little while. It might be a vacation home, a secondary home, etc. So if your solar system that you installed is generating way more power than is even being consumed on that property or that unit, then all of that goes back to the grid, and the grid, essentially the utility company, would buy off your energy, and that's once again called net metering agreement. Now, depending on your region, your area, the kilowatt hour buyback rate might vary. Here in California, it's about 6 cents. I know in Arizona, it's about the same. Other ones might give you a little uh, more money for your per kilowatt hour, more cents. However, it just depends. So there is a little bit of research that has to be done on your specific utility and what kind of net metering agreement is in place for that city, for that jurisdiction. You know, what utility company you have, and what are their buyback rates? What are their net metering agreements? You know, what happens if I generate more power? What am I going to get back as far as a credit on my bill? And so those are typical things that happen. Is excess energy is always credited back to your account, and you should see that as a breakdown on your bill as well.
Awesome. So what's the impact of the weather and location on the efficiency of solar panels?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going back to the first questions about efficiency, is that location is definitely important. If you had two options of installing a solar panel system on your roof, you had north and south, just like you see here on in this type of roof. It's a very straightforward roof. It only has two planes. So let's say, for example, that they installed this system on the north versus on the south. So that system itself is going to produce power, but not as efficiently as it would if it was installed on the other side of the roof. And so you're always looking at south, east, west, and then north at the very last, but once again, trying to avoid the north if possible. And then the weather does affect the system. And as far as them producing power, it is going to still produce power like in the snow, in high wind areas, in really sunny areas, in gloomy areas. It's still going to produce power. However, the most ideal scenario for a solar system is to be on a nice sunny day with no shade, on a south, east, or west facing roof plane with no obstructions again. And if they're kicked on with a lot of dirt, a lot of dust, that could drop the production slightly. So the most ideal is to have the panels, just like as you see here, pretty clean, on the south, east, or west facing roof plane with no visible obstructions from trees causing shade. That'll crank out and make your panels the most efficient that they can and operate and give you the most power.
So what's the impact of solar panels on my home insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. So that depends on how you're financing these systems. If you are going solar, if you're putting in a system on your new construction build and you're paying cash, you're owning that system. You're paying cash or you're financing it. You are owning that system. So that means you would have to put it on your homeowner's insurance, as far as making sure that it's insurable. And it might be $20, $40 more. You don't have to do that if you're doing a lease. So if you're doing a lease, you don't own it, you don't have to insure them. The company takes care of that because it's their equipment. But if it is a new construction, most of these are going to be homeowner owned. So those would be once again, you have to add those to your property insurance, your homeowner's insurance. So it'll be once again $20 to $40 depending on what kind of carrier you have.
And so you might want to discuss different types of roofs and how the panels might, affect the durability of of the roof? And, do we have to complement the roof with a certain type of framing system, or what do you recommend in new construction, Erwin?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of new constructions, they either do trusses on their new construction builds. So when you're installing a solar system, once again, we tie into the framing part. So the roof is already going to be on as far as the shingles or the concrete tiles, and the actual shingles are going to be installed by rails, so they'll have to penetrate the roof and anchor those stanchions on top of those beams. So in order for us to install the system, we'll have to install that, penetrate, drill into the roof beam, anchor it, and then seal that, and then install the rails and the solar system on top of it. Now, it is going to cover a large majority of that roof. And for the most part, this is actually going to help ensure your house's integrity is even more stronger. For example, there was a situation in Florida with the hurricanes where surprisingly the only roofs that were still intact were the ones that had a solar system on that roof. Other roofs that were just standard roofs, they literally just blew away. However, the roofs that had panels on them stayed intact, and that just goes to the robust stanchions and equipment that's used to install these systems that actually makes your roof a little bit stronger. So just in case of any kind of weather, it is going to help strengthen your roof durability long term.
Erwin, can you install solar panels on a roof that's a metal roof?
So typically for metal roofs, those are going to be a little bit different scope of work. Like metal roofs, clay tile, Decra, specialty tile roofs. Those are going to require a more robust scope of work, where they'll have to remove those tiles because they can't drill through them. They'll have to remove those, expose basically the wood, and do what's called a comp shingle inlay or inset, where they're going to install comp shingles underneath, install the system, and then try to backfill it with that existing tile, metal tile, Decra, and stone coated steel type of roofs.
Yeah, California has a wide variety of tile roofs, unlike any other state, probably. So, does my solar power system continue to work during a power outage?
Yeah, this is a great question, Larry. I get this question a lot from GCs, from investors, from clients, just asking questions about how solar systems work. And a big question that comes up quite often is, hey, you know what? My neighbor has solar. The power went out, and they didn't have power for their home. I thought solar would give them power during the power outage. And the answer is, if they only have solar without a battery backup, then no. And the reason why is because if the power goes out, your system will automatically shut itself off within milliseconds. And it does that because if you're producing power live during the day and there's a power outage, if you're not using that energy, it's going to go back to the grid. And if somebody like myself is working on the grid and we're out there, we're running the lines, we're trying to correct things, and there's live power coming from your solar system, we could be in danger of being electrocuted, and it could be a fatality. So when the power goes out, your system automatically gets shut off. It's an automatic shut off that happens during this time. Now, unless you have a backup battery, that backup battery will be discharging energy back to your home. But again, you'd have to have a backup battery in order to still have power. If you only have solar without a battery, then you will also be subject to a power outage for that time being.
Yeah, that's an excellent distinction.
We got a question from Nilesh Tandon. I don't know if I'm saying that right. His question is: many people ask, what about cleaning the panels? Some have confusion on if having solar bumps up on the homeowner's insurance. So I believe we covered that earlier. So as far as cleaning them, you don't necessarily have to. However, if you want to maximize the output and just for aesthetics reasons, you could clean them maybe once, twice a year at most. And it depends too. If you live in like the high desert where you're subject to like dust storms, you might get more dust caked onto your panels. And so you might have to clean them more often just to make sure that they're working as efficiently as they can. Now, it is going to drop production if you don't clean them a little bit. But again, if you want to maximize your output from your system, you definitely would have to, either hire somebody on, or if you feel comfortable doing it yourself, you can absolutely do that too. But again, adding a solar system, if you're buying it, either financing it or paying cash for it, installing it yourself, or hiring a contractor to do it for you, it is going to increase your homeowner's insurance because you will have to add that system to your homeowner's insurance.
We're going to record this. Well, we've recorded it, and we're going to make it available for you guys. Also, if there's a lot of variables in new construction, and if you want a free consult with Erwin, just get a hold of me. If you're part of one of my groups or on Facebook, just DM me or DM Erwin. He's on Facebook too. And we can set up a free consult to help you kind of design the system that you need and figure out what a good orientation is, what the cost is. You probably need to have or close to having your set of plans though, so that we can do some deep analysis and get that squared away. What other things do you need, Erwin, whenever you analyze something from plans and specs?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good question, Larry, and thank you for touching on that. So when you're doing a new construction project, before you talk to somebody about solar or adding it on, whether you want to build it yourself or you want to hire a contractor, what's the first step you got to do? And as Larry touched on right now, you have to have plans approved, meaning that your plans are already good to go, you're set, and there's a blocker, you want to add solar or you're mandated, you have to add it by law, like Title 24 here in California. And so for us, when we plug in, we have to look at your plans, whether you hire us to do your plans for you or you have done them yourself through a friend or through a different party. We're always going to ask you for a full set of plans that are approved so that we can understand what type of roof you have, the main panel amperage, and from there we can help design a system to meet your needs based on Title 24. So if it's a small unit, it might be a small system. If it's a bigger unit, could use a little bit bigger system. Or maybe you want to just maximize the roof space for that new construction, whether it's an ADU or new construction SFR. You have the ability to pick either minimum or maximum based on your specific needs. But again, we would need a full set of plans in order to look at those plans and design a system that's going to meet that specific production or consumption request.
So how hard is it to get, we got all these building permits that we got to pull. How hard is it to get a permit for the solar system?
Yeah, it's not really difficult. You do have to submit drawings or line diagram to the city to get permits. And once again, they're going to require us to design a system based on what's being constructed on plans. And so we'll do a diagram that's going to show where the solar system could go on the roof. And we'll tie it in and we'll submit that over to the city for permits. And typically it'll be alongside the new construction permit, whether it's an SFR or if it's an ADU. it'll be plugged into the same, but it'll require for either the homeowner to pull permits out as owner build, or if they're looking for us to do it all turnkey, we'll have our C46 contractor pull permits on your behalf and go through the process, along the way.
So, Erwin, a lot of the owner builders have land, and they have like extra space. They're not in an urban area where there's absolutely no yard. So they have the option to do a ground mount. Can you talk about how that compares to a roof mount?
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's if let's say an owner builder is building a house or rebuilding it from scratch, and they don't want to put it on the roof, they can absolutely build a ground mount system and connect that to the main house via trenching. So it is going to be a little more costly depending on how far away it is from your main panel. But if you have a lot of land and you'd rather just do that versus putting it on your roof, then you absolutely can put it on your lot as a ground mount system.
So, can you talk a little bit about the battery? You mentioned it previously, but batteries and just give us a thumbnail on batteries if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two options for batteries. Batteries can act as a backup battery, and they can also act as a discharge battery. And now backup means that when you have a blackout, just like a generator, the batteries will kick in automatically and help feed power to your home with that stored energy from the solar system. Now, if you have a discharge only battery, then that battery is not going to have backup capabilities. It'll only strictly be discharging energy back to your home as needed. So let's say when the sun's out, let's say at 6:30 p.m., that battery will start to kick in and discharge energy back to your home until it depletes. But it'll only act as a discharge battery. So if you have a blackout, that battery won't be able to back or feed power back to your home because it's just discharge. There are some batteries that offer both capabilities, backup and discharge. It just depends on what's most important for you. If you have a lot of blackouts and you don't have consistent energy because you live in a rural area, then maybe a backup battery would be the best bet for you. But if you're in a high dense area where your utility bill is really high, you just want to avoid tapping into that energy at all costs, then you might have to consider just a discharge only battery at that point with non-backup capabilities. So it really depends on the specific need for your home. Again, if you experience blackouts, backup batteries. If you live in an area with high utility bills, then that's mostly a discharge only battery option.
Good. Did we answer the question in the chat about how much kilowatt hours to add to the system for the electric car mileage? Did we answer that one? I forgot.
Yeah, I believe I think JC plugged in every 10,000 miles they drive, you need another 3 kilowatt.
Great, cool
system or kilowatt.
Excellent. Okay, question from Frank. Can you have 12-volt lights when the power goes off, or do you have and does it have to run off of a battery? I guess that's you would be consuming less electricity if you had 12-volt lights. What do you think about that, Erwin?
Yeah, absolutely. So does it have to run off a battery? So if you have a blackout, then I don't believe you'll even have the ability to even run that battery. I'm sorry, run that light. So the whole home's not going to be without power for an hour and a half, 30 minutes. So to answer that, you have to have a battery to at least run that. And you can run a lot of those as well. A lot of those because basically what you're doing, Larry, is you're backing up breakers. And so when the power goes out, those breakers will still have power feeding back to the home, because they're getting fed from the battery. Now, if the power goes out and you have no battery, the whole home's not going to have any power whatsoever. Unless you have a generator or if you have a solar system with a backup battery, you can designate which breakers you want to back up. And in this case, if you want to run specific breaker that powers on these lights, you'll have to make sure that you get that breaker backed up. If that makes sense.
All right. Anybody else have any questions while we're here?
I had a question about ADUs, and I guess, Erwin, from what you're saying is an ADU is exactly the same as new construction. Is that correct?
Yeah, Howard. So great question. So the ADU, most of the ones that are being built, it depends, right? If you have a new construction ADU in the back of your house, that'll fall under the same rules of Title 24. If you're converting your garage, then that you wouldn't necessarily require solar on that, based on the law right now. But if it's a new construction, ground up with new foundation, etc., new utility hookups, that one, based on the Title 24 sheet, is going to call for at least a small solar system, which is about 5 panels, mostly, to give you an idea. And then from there, you can also pick if you want to add more panels, if you want to maximize the roof, or if you just want to meet minimum, again, 5 to about 10 or 12 panels that fit there.
Well, this has been extremely informative, lots of detail, and I know that you've got a lot more experience to consult people with that we've only covered part of it. So we'll try to follow up with everybody that's been here and let them know how to get more information. Facebook is probably the easiest way to go. You can find Erwin in our groups and get a hold of me. And then we'll you can field any kind of question you want, and we'll try to help you nail it.